Uphold thou me, that I may uplift thee. Amen. We are so glad you're here. So glad you're here. This is such a strange time. I apologize for the masks. It's a little weird. We're getting used to it. 20 years is a long time. In that amount of time, a child grows from an infant to become a young adult. In that amount of time, relationships can either slowly deepen or unravel altogether. In 2 decades, our bodies change shape and new lines form on our faces and on our hands. We change locations, we change jobs, we change our minds about some things. With regards to others, well, we solidify our beliefs and double down on them. 20 years is a long, long time. And yet, it is equally true that 20 years goes by like the blink of an eye. It's a moment ago. It's like it happened only yesterday. We remember so much of it with an amazing clarity: the color of the sky, where we were, the people around us, the conversations we had. We remember the feeling we had when we first realized the world had changed significantly, irrevocably, right before our very eyes. We have amazing abilities to recall some of the smallest details of our lives from 20 years ago. And in some ways, time doesn't just go by, but it sprints by. It races past us so that we wonder, where did the time go? How did 20 years go by so quickly? Jesus said, "This is my commandment, that you love one another as I have loved you. No one has greater love than this, to lay down one's life for one's friends." We gather here today in this holy place to mark a solemn moment and to honor this greatest of loves, this self-sacrificing love. We are here because we have not forgotten the lives lost on this day 20 years ago. Our presence is a testimony to the fact that those lives matter. We are witnesses. We remember. We are here to say those lives are profoundly grieved, and we honor them in every way we can. We lift them and their family members up in our prayers, and we ask God's blessings upon them. For those of us who did not personally know any of these men we remember in this service, we are here to say their sacrifice means something essential to us. Their example, their heroism, their witness speaks to us across these 20 years. Their example makes us want to matter in the ways they made their lives matter. Their heroism, although they would have said it was nothing more than duty, calls to us from beyond death and the grave and tells us, yes, we can be more than we are. Yes, we too can devote ourselves to something higher and better that is beyond our own individual wants and needs. Loris Binion wrote his poem For the Fallen as a commemoration of British soldiers lost in World War II. He wrote, "There is music in the midst of desolation, and a glory that shines upon our tears. They went with songs to the battle. They were young, straight of limb, true of eye, steady and aglow. They were staunch to the end against odds uncounted. They fell with their faces to the foe. They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn, as the going down of the sun and in the morning. We will remember them. We will remember them. But how shall we remember them? Well, we too can express that greatest love in living a life given to the service of others. We too can devote ourselves to causes and to people in need of our help. As people of faith, we are called to love. We are compelled to love others so much that we are willing to give our very lives for others. To give ourselves to love and not hate can make us look like the suckers in the room. Who hasn't wished for vengeance in the Lord's mighty name? Love looks insipid, weak. There was a monstrous evil which cannot be ignored in the killing of so many innocents. Yet love, as it turns out, is the more powerful force. Love alone endures. Love is the secret weapon of people of faith everywhere who do not look as if they stand a chance against such powerful forces. Jesus said to his disciples, "As the Father has loved me, so I have loved you. Abide in my love. Live in my love. Exist in my love." The love displayed by Jesus in a remote country more than 2,000 years ago is a love we're called to express in our day. It's a love which is healing. It's a love which is self-sacrificing. It's a love which is strong enough to stand the test of time. It's a love which is unique in all the world, as unique and as powerful as Christ himself. Now, we all know a little bit about loss. We all know something of it. Some of us have lost brothers and sisters over the years. Many of us have lost one or both parents. A few of us have lost friends or have endured the nearly unbearable loss of a child. We have faced illness, financial hardship, economic disaster, pandemics, conflict at work, betrayals, depressions, difficulties with our children. So many losses that we can't even name them all. To live in this world is to experience defeat from time to time. We've cried ourselves to sleep and wondered if we could ever again make it out of our beds in the morning. How will we get dressed, eat breakfast, make our way into the world again? How can we do anything when we are so deeply mired in our grief and in our loss? The prophet Micah brought a word of hope into a conflicted world when he proclaimed, "They shall beat their swords into plowshares and their spears into pruning hooks. Nation shall not lift up sword against nation, neither shall they learn war anymore." Can you imagine the beating of weapons of war into plows and gardening tools. Imagine no weapon being lifted up against any other nation. Imagine, just think of it, not learning war anymore. It is the heaven we long for. It is the hope we can never put completely away. Micah continues, "They shall all sit under their own vines and under their own fig trees, and no one shall make them afraid. For the mouth of the Lord of hosts has spoken. For all the peoples walk, each in the name of its God. But we walk in the name of the Lord our God forever and ever." Wow. If only we could just sit under our vines and under our own fig trees. If only no one could make us afraid. But we are deathly afraid, and we live in a moment which magnifies our fears. A pandemic and the financial disruption which accompanies it, increasingly severe weather patterns, civil unrest, a racial reckoning, you name it, and it feels as though we've experienced it over the last 18 months. In addition to a political polarization which keeps us from agreeing upon something as non-controversial and as fundamental as a fact. Oh yeah, we know something about loss. I saw a video this past week of a fireman responding to the flooding caused by Hurricane Ida. Without any scuba gear, no oxygen tank, no mask, he didn't have any of the gear you would think he might need. And yet there he was, diving into a basement apartment through debris and filthy water to see if he could find someone who might have been trapped by the torrential rains. There was no wasted motion, no time to think about it. He was calm, methodical even. He knew there was no time to wait for someone else better equipped, better trained to come and help. And I am certain that firefighter didn't personally know the people he was seeking to help. I'm certain he didn't think of himself as any kind of hero. He simply did what needed to be done in that moment, and as I watched, a tear welling up in the corner of my eye, I couldn't fight it back. And then I realized that he reminded me of all those firefighters in those long lines 20 years ago who climbed thousands of steps in the Twin Towers, while every other person in the building was going down to their families, down to their friends, down to the rest of their lives. Those firefighters, sweating under the weight of their heavy loads, kept climbing up. If you are not moved by this, you do not have a heart beating in your chest. Who does this type of thing? What are we to make of it? Police officers, paramedics, first responders of every kind face danger every single day. In the pandemic, we have seen the cost paid by nurses and doctors on the front lines. Members of the military, along with members of the diplomatic and intelligence communities, all take great risks so that we might survive the most unimaginable horrors. And it seems to me that without these types of sacrifices, without these icons of selfless service, we cannot have the society of which we dream. Without these who love others as Christ has loved us, we will never have the democracy we seek. We will never have the equality we want or the security for which we hope. Because every single one of these gifts depends upon the few to pour out their lives on behalf of the many. As the poet wrote, there is music in the midst of desolation and a glory that shines upon our tears. There is an undeniable blessing in the midst of all this pain and sacrifice and loss. There's truly a glory that shines upon our tears. People of faith believe the world we occupy is not the only reality, nor is it the last reality. People of faith believe there is something more than what we can see or know. And it's not Pollyannish, this faith. It's born out of generations of human experience. We believe we will one day join those who have gone before. We believe we too shall rise in glory on the last day. Now, 20 years later, there's some debate about how 9/11 should best be commemorated. Some argue that 9/11 has become an opportunity for even more political polarization, like so many other parts of American life. One scholar, Andrew Levy, suggests that we should, and I quote, drop the vague, never forget hashtags that point towards no actual consensus about nation or memory. Cancel the lights and the ball games. Instead, mourn in the traditional way with seriousness and calm those who perished on 9/11. And having mourned properly, we could then tend to the business of the next generation for whom 9/11 itself is remote, but the damage done in its aftermath all too present, and for whom mourning may also be the right response. What truth and reconciliation might we obtain, for instance, if we instead allowed 9/11 this one symbolic use and this one only? If we spent the day thinking only about the people who truly lost something, regardless of whatever agenda they theoretically represent. End quote. So that's why we're here today. We're here today to support the people who truly lost something and to remember everyone and everything they have lost. 20 years is a long time. It's time enough to begin to heal, to begin to forgive, to discover in the examples of the past the very people we are called to be now and in the future. They shall grow not old as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun and in the morning, we will remember them.